Welcome back to Bardic Sleep Stories. As the world outside grows quiet and the shadows lengthen, we return once more to the sanctuary of the past. Take a deep, slow breath, feeling the air fill your lungs before releasing it fully. Let your shoulders drop, allow the muscles in your face to soften, and feel the weight of your body sink into the comfort of your bed. You are safe, you are still, and you are ready to travel through time. The stories we tell here are long, steady, and detailed. They are designed to occupy the wandering mind with the gentle rhythm of history, providing a path that leads away from the worries of today and toward a deep restorative sleep. There is no pressure to follow every word or reach the end of the chronicle. Whether you drift away in 5 minutes or 50, the story will remain here, a constant and calming presence in the dark. Tonight we immerse ourselves in a grand and sprawling narrative. We shall set aside the haste of the modern age to observe the slow turning of the wheel of power, focusing on the textures of life, the echoes of ancient stone, and the quiet legacy of those who came before us. Our journey this evening leads us into the heart of a vast and storied heritage. We begin our exhaustive exploration of the traveling bard. We find ourselves awaking not in a feather bed within stone walls, but upon a bed of pine needles and soft earth, cradled by the roots of a great ancient oak tree. It is the hour just before the dawn, a time of grey mist and profound silence. The air is cool and damp, clinging to the wool of your cloak, which has served as your blanket through the night. You are the bard, the keeper of songs, and the walker of the long roads, and you are currently resting in the borderlands of the silverleaf forest. The fire you built the night before has burned down to a bed of glowing red embers, hidden beneath a layer of white ash, pulsing gently like a slowing heart. Above you, the canopy of the oak leaves is a dark lattice against the lightening sky, motionless in the still morning air. You take a moment to simply exist in this quietude, listening to the forest slowly waking up around you. The transition from sleep to wakefulness is slow and natural, unhurried by the demands of a clock or a master. You sit up slowly, the heavy wool of your cloak falling from your shoulders, releasing the faint, comforting scent of wood smoke and dried lavender. You reach out a hand to the fire pit, hovering your palm over the white ash. There is still warmth there, a gentle heat that radiates upward to thaw the chill of the dawn from your fingers. You pick up a small, dried twig of birch and push it through the ash to the embers below. Crack, hiss. The wood catches, a tiny flame flickering into existence, casting a warm orange glow on the rough bark of the oak tree. You add another twig, and then a small branch, feeding the fire not for a roaring blaze, but for enough heat to boil water. You reach for your small iron kettle, black with the soot of 100 mornings, and fill it from the leather water skin lying by your pack. You place the kettle on the flat stone at the edge of the fire. Clink, settle. While the water heats, you turn your attention to your most prized possession, the lute. It rests in its case of hardened leather, lined with rabbit fur. You unbuckle the case with careful, practiced movements. Click, slide. You lift the instrument out. The wood is polished maple, smooth and cool to the touch, glowing with a deep honeyed luster. You inspect the strings. They are taut and perfect. You strum a single chord, very softly, so as not to disturb the sleeping birds. Strum. The sound is rich and melancholy, hanging in the mist for a moment before fading. You do not play a song. You simply check the tuning, ensuring that the dampness of the night has not warped the neck. Satisfied, you wipe the wood with a soft cloth and return it to its case. The water in the kettle begins to bubble. Bubble, steam. It is time for tea, and then the road. Having broken your fast with a cup of bitter tea and a piece of hard oat bread, you begin the ritual of breaking camp. This is a process of erasure. A good traveler leaves no trace of their passing. You scatter the remaining embers of the fire, dousing them thoroughly with the dregs of the water, until the hissing stops and the stones are cold. Hiss, steam, silence. You bury the wet ash with fresh earth, patting it down until the ground looks undisturbed. You roll your wool cloak tight, securing it with leather straps to the top of your pack. Roll, pull, buckle. You shoulder the pack. It is heavy, but familiar, a weight that your body has grown accustomed to over years of walking. You pick up your walking staff, a sturdy length of ashwood, polished smooth by the grip of your hand. You stand and look around the clearing one last time. It is as if you were never there. You turn towards the path, a narrow ribbon of trodden earth that winds deeper into the forest. The sun has now crested the horizon, sending long horizontal beams of gold through the trees. These beams catch the mist that hangs low over the forest floor, turning the air into a luminous golden haze. You begin to walk. Step, crunch, step. Your boots sink slightly into the deep layers of fallen leaves and pine needles, making a soft rhythmic sound. The forest here is old, older than the kingdoms of men. The trees are massive, their trunks like pillars of a cathedral, covered in thick carpets of velvet green moss. Bearded lichen hangs from the branches in grey festoons, swaying gently in the first stirrings of the morning breeze. The light is dappled, shifting and changing as the leaves move above, creating a moving mosaic of shadow and sun on the path before you. As the morning progresses, the path leads you downward into a small valley, the air growing cooler and more humid as you descend. You hear the sound of water long before you see it, a low, continuous murmuring that grows louder with every step. Murmur, rush, splash. You emerge from a dense thicket of ferns to find the source, a swift-flowing mountain stream cutting through the forest floor like a vein of liquid silver. The water is crystal clear, tumbling over smooth grey stones and swirling into deep, quiet pools near the banks. You pause here to rest. You lean your staff against a willow tree and kneel by the water's edge. The bank is lined with smooth pebbles and wet sand. You cup your hands and dip them into the stream. Splash. Lift. The water is shockingly cold, numbing your fingers instantly. You drink. It tastes of melted snow and stone, pure and clean. You wash your face, the cold water waking your senses fully, sharpening your vision. You look into the stream. Tiny fish, no longer than your finger, dart amongst the shadows of the rocks, flashing silver in the sunlight that filters through the willow branches. A blue dragonfly hovers over the surface, its wings a blur of iridescent motion. Buzz, hover, dart. You take your empty water skin and submerge it in the current. Air bubbles rise to the surface as it fills. Glug, glug, glug. When it is full, you stopper it tight. You sit back on your heels for a moment, listening to the water. It is a timeless sound, a song that has been sung in this valley since the earth was young. It is the companion of the bard, a melody that requires no instrument, only an ear to hear it. You stand up, retrieve your staff, and cross the stream using a series of large, flat stepping stones, balancing carefully as you move from one to the next. The path begins to climb again, winding its way up the far side of the valley, leading you out of the dense canopy of the silver-leaf forest. The trees begin to thin, the great oaks and pines giving way to smaller birches and hawthorn bushes. The light becomes brighter, harder, less filtered by the leaves. Finally, you crest a ridge and step out from under the eaves of the wood entirely. The landscape opens up before you in a breathtaking panorama of scale and distance. You are standing on the edge of the high plains, a vast rolling ocean of green grass that stretches out to the horizon. The wind here is different from the stillness of the forest. It is a living, moving force, rushing up from the plains to meet you. It tugs at your cloak and cools the sweat on your brow. Whoosh! Rustle. You look out across the distance. Far to the north, a range of mountains rises up, their peaks capped with eternal snow, looking like jagged teeth against the blue sky. They are purple in the distance, softened by the atmospheric haze. To the west, you can see the glitter of a distant river, winding its way through the grasslands like a fallen ribbon. Above you, the sky is a colossal dome of azure, empty save for a single hawk circling on a thermal updraft. Screech, circle. You feel a profound sense of freedom. The forest was a place of intimacy and secrets. The plains are a place of exposure and grandeur. The road ahead is visible for miles, a pale line cutting through the green. You adjust your pack, grip your staff, and step onto the grass. The walking will be easier here, the ground firm and even. You begin to hum a low tune to yourself, a walking song to match the rhythm of your boots. As you set off across the wide open world, the sun climbs higher into the azure vault of the sky, shedding the pale, tentative light of dawn for the golden, confident heat of the late morning. You are now deep within the embrace of the high plains. Walking here is a different discipline than the careful picking of steps required in the forest. Here, you can lengthen your stride. Your boots find purchase on the firm, dry earth of the track, and your staff swings in a steady, hypnotic counter-rhythm to your steps. Left, thud, right, swish. The grass on either side of the road grows tall, reaching up to your waist. It is a mixture of wheatgrass, timothy, and wild barley, turning from green to gold as the summer advances. The wind, which blows constantly across these open spaces, plays the grass like a vast instrument. You watch as gusts of air travel across the fields, visible as waves of darker green depressing the stalks, rippling outwards like ripples on a pond. Rustle, hiss, shh. The sound is constant, a dry, sibilant whispering that fills the silence of the plains. It is a lonely sound, but peaceful. You see wildflowers dotted amongst the green blades, bright pops of color. There are blue cornflowers, red poppies with their paper-thin petals fluttering frantically, and white ox-eye daisies turning their faces to follow the sun. Bees, heavy with pollen, drone lazily between them. You pass a solitary hawthorn tree, bent and twisted by years of wind, standing like a crooked old man by the side of the road. A small flock of finches bursts from its branches as you approach, a sudden explosion of yellow and brown feathers, chirping indignantly at the interruption before settling back down once you have passed. You are a small, moving speck in a world of immense stillness, traveling at the speed of a human walk, the most honest pace there is. At the zenith of the day, when the sun is directly overhead and your shadow has retreated to a dark pool beneath your boots, you decide to halt. Ahead, standing solitary in a sea of clover, is a weathered standing stone, a relic of a people who walked these lands 1,000 years ago. It stands some 8 feet tall, a slab of grey granite covered in patches of bright orange and yellow lichen. You approach it and place your hand on the rough surface. Touch, solid. The stone is warm, having absorbed the heat of the sun all morning. It feels grounded, permanent, and welcoming. You slip the heavy pack from your shoulders and lean it against the base of the monolith. Thud, sigh. You sit down in the lee of the stone, protected from the constant wind. The silence here in the wind shadow is profound. You open your pack and retrieve your midday meal, a wedge of sharp, hard cheese wrapped in wax cloth, a crisp red apple, and the last heel of the oat bread. You eat slowly, slicing the apple with a small knife. Slice, crunch. The tart juice is refreshing. You watch the small life of the grass. A line of black ants is navigating the forest of clover stems, marching with singular purpose towards some unseen goal. A grasshopper lands on your boot, its green body blending with the leather, its long antennae twitching. Click, jump. It bounds away. You lean your head back against the warm stone and close your eyes for a moment, letting the sun warm your face. You are not sleeping, but drifting in that pleasant, heavy state of rest that comes after physical exertion. You smell the scent of the heated earth, the dry grass, and the faint mineral tang of the stone itself. It is a simple, perfect moment of stillness in the middle of a long journey. The afternoon wears on, and the light begins to change quality again, softening and turning a deeper gold as the sun starts its long descent towards the western mountains. The weather on the plains is visible for miles, and you see a change approaching long before it arrives. To the south, great towers of white cumulus clouds are piling up, their flat bases dark with moisture. They are drifting slowly across the sky, dragging distinct curtains of grey rain beneath them. You watch the rain falling on distant hills miles away, while you remain in the sunshine. It is a beautiful, silent spectacle. As you walk, the edge of the cloud bank passes over you. The temperature drops slightly, a refreshing coolness after the heat of the midday. The scent of the air changes instantly, becoming sharp and clean. The smell of petrichor, rain falling on dry dust. Pat, pat, pat. The first heavy drops begin to fall. You do not stop to seek shelter, for there is none, and the rain is light. You simply pull the hood of your cloak up, rustle, cover. The rain intensifies to a gentle shower. The sound of the world changes. The dry rustle of the grass is replaced by a soft, rhythmic drumming on your hood and shoulders. Drum, tap, drum. The dust on the road is tamped down, turning a dark, rich brown. The colors of the wildflowers seem to glow with new intensity against the gray sky. It is a sun shower, passing as quickly as it came. Within 20 minutes, the cloud has moved on, leaving the world glistening and damp. Steam begins to rise from the road, smelling of warm earth. A rainbow arcs faintly across the eastern sky, a bridge of spectral light connecting the grass to the clouds. You shake the water from your cloak and continue, your boots now leaving crisp, clear prints in the damp soil. As the shadows stretch out long and thin before you, reaching like fingers towards the horizon, the character of the landscape begins to shift again. The wild, unbroken grasslands give way to the ordered patterns of agriculture. You begin to see low stone walls, built of dry-stacked fieldstones, dividing the land into pastures. Sheep, heavy with wool, graze in these enclosures. They look up as you pass, chewing rhythmically, their rectangular pupils regarding you with mild disinterest before they return to the grass. Bah, munch. The road widens and becomes paved with cobblestones, worn smooth by the passage of wagon wheels. You are approaching the hamlet of River's Bend. In the distance, you see the thin grey plumes of wood smoke rising from chimneys, straight up into the still evening air. The smell of the smoke reaches you, a comforting domestic scent that promises warmth and food. You pass a farmer leading a cart horse home from the fields. The horse is a massive, gentle giant with feathered hooves, plodding along with a heavy, clop-clopping gait. Clop, clop, clop. The farmer nods to you. "Good evening, traveller," he says, his voice rough but kind. "Good evening," you reply, tipping your head. You cross a small, arched stone bridge over the river that gives the village its name. The water here is wide and slow, reflecting the orange and purple hues of the sunset like a mirror of polished copper. Ducks are paddling near the reeds, tucking their heads into their wings for the night. You walk up the main street of the village. The houses are half-timbered, with whitewashed walls and roofs of thick golden thatch. Lanterns are being lit in the windows, casting warm yellow squares of light onto the darkening street. The day's journey is ending. You reach the center of the hamlet, a small square dominated by a large, spreading chestnut tree and a stone well. Opposite the well stands your destination, the Green Man Inn. A wooden sign hangs above the door, painting depicting a face made of leaves, swinging gently on iron chains, with a soft, rhythmic creak. Squeak, creak. You approach the heavy oak door. You can hear the muffled sounds of life from within. Low voices, the clinking of pottery, A burst of laughter. You push the door open. Creak, thud. You step across the threshold, and the sensory transition is immediate. You leave the cool blue twilight and enter a world of golden warmth. The air inside is thick and rich, smelling of roasting meat, pipe tobacco, and dried hops. A large stone fireplace dominates the far wall where a roaring fire of apple wood logs crackles and spits, sending waves of heat across the room. Crackle, pop. The floor is strewn with fresh rushes and dried herbs, meadowsweet and sage, which release their scent as people walk over them. You lower your hood. The conversation in the room dips for a second as the locals look to see who has entered, then resumes its steady hum as they see it as just a traveler. The innkeeper, a woman with a white apron and a kind, flushed face, looks up from the bar. She spots the lute case on your back, and her smile widens. A bard is always welcome. They bring news, and they bring songs. A seat by the fire, she asks, and a bowl of stew? You nod gratefully. You weave your way through the heavy wooden tables, the fatigue of the road finally catching up to you now that you have stopped. You find a small table near the hearth, unbuckle your pack, and let it slide to the floor with a heavy thump. You sit on the sturdy bench, stretching your legs out towards the fire. You are safe. You are fed. You have arrived. The innkeeper returns to your table, carrying a wooden tray laden with the sustenance you have been craving since the sun was high over the plains. She places it down with a solid thud of timber on timber. Clunk. There is a deep earthenware bowl filled to the brim with a rich dark stew. Steam rises from it in thick, savory ribbons, carrying the aroma of slow-cooked beef, root vegetables, and thyme. Beside it rests a hunk of bread, the crust dark and dusted with flour, the interior soft and dense. A pewter tankard of brown ale completes the meal, condensation weeping slowly down its metal sides. You pick up the heavy iron spoon. It feels substantial in your hand. You dip it into the stew, stirring gently to cool it. Clink, swirl. The gravy is thick and glossy. You take the first mouthful. The flavors are deep and earthy, the meat falling apart, the carrots sweet from the soil. It is a simple meal, but after a day of walking, it tastes better than a banquet in a king's hall. You break the bread, the crust cracking with a satisfying sound. Crack, tear. You use the soft crumb to soak up the gravy. You take a long draught of the ale. It is cool, not cold, with a nutty, malty finish that washes away the dust of the road. As you eat, you feel the heat of the fire and the warmth of the food radiating outwards from your core, thawing the stiffness in your muscles. The knot of tension between your shoulders begins to loosen. You eat slowly, deliberately, honoring the food and the effort it took to prepare it. Around you, the inn is a cocoon of comfort. You hear the low murmur of conversations, the clinking of forks, the shifting of benches. It is the sound of humanity at rest, a collective exhaling of the day's labors. You scrape the last of the stew from the bowl, feeling a heavy, contented lethargy settling over you like a warm blanket. With your hunger satisfied, you lean back against the wall, stretching your legs out towards the hearth. You do not reach for your lute just yet. For now you are content simply to observe. An inn at night is a theatre of small, quiet dramas. To your left, two old farmers are playing a game of draughts on a board scratched into the table surface. They move their pieces, smooth river stones, one set white, one set black, with agonizing slowness. Slide, click. They do not speak, communicating only in grunts and nods, a friendship measured in decades of silence. Near the fire, a large shaggy wolfhound is sleeping on the flagstones. It twitches in its sleep, perhaps chasing dream rabbits across dream plains. Twitch, sigh. The firelight plays across the room, casting long, dancing shadows that stretch and shrink on the whitewashed walls. The light reflects off the copper pans hanging above the bar, turning them into glowing orange moons. You watch the innkeeper wiping down the counter with a rhythmic, circular motion. Swish, swish. She pauses to laugh at a joke from a patron, her face crinkling in genuine mirth. Outside, the wind has picked up again, whistling around the eaves and rattling the window panes in their lead frames. Rattle. Gust. The sound only serves to make the interior feel warmer and safer. You are separated from the wild night by thick stone and solid oak. You take a small pipe from your pocket, stuffing it with a pinch of sweet tobacco. You light it with a spill from the fire. Flare, puff. The smoke drifts up, blue and fragrant, joining the layers of scent that make up the atmosphere of the room. You watch the smoke curl and dissipate, your mind empty of thoughts, simply existing in the warm, golden present. The evening deepens, and a lull falls over the conversation in the room. Eyes turn towards you, expectant but polite. It is the silent invitation. You nod, acknowledging the request. You pull your lute case closer, unbuckling the leather straps once more. Click, snap. You lift the instrument out, the firelight catching the grain of the maple wood, making it shimmer like tiger's eye. You cradle the lute against your chest, feeling its familiar shape, a part of you that you only put down to sleep. You begin to tune. This is not a chore, but a performance in itself. You turn the peg of the lowest string, pluck, twist, hum. You listen to the pitch, adjusting it until it rings true. You move to the next string and the next. Pling, plong, plink. The room grows quieter as you work, the patrons watching the ritual with fascination. Music is a kind of magic to those who do not play. It is the conjuring of emotion from wood and wire. When the instrument is perfectly in tune, you strum a gentle G major chord. Strum. The sound is bright, resonant, and fills the room, cutting through the heavy air. You do not play a rousing drinking song or a fast-paced jig. The mood of the room is too mellow for that. Instead, you choose a ballad of the high country, a song about the seasons changing and the rivers flowing. You begin to pick a slow, intricate arpeggio, your fingers dancing over the fretboard. Pick, slide, pluck. The notes hang in the air like dust motes in a sunbeam. The old farmers stop their game to listen. The dog lifts its head, ears cocked. You close your eyes, letting your fingers find the way, blending the sound of the lute with the crackle of the fire. You begin to sing, keeping your voice low and melodic, more of a hum than a shout. You sing of the green grass turning to gold, of the snow falling on the high peaks, and of the traveler returning home. The lyrics are simple, worn smooth by centuries of singers, but they hold a timeless power. The people in the room seem to settle deeper into their seats. Relax, lean. A mother in the corner rocks her sleeping baby to the rhythm of your song. The innkeeper stops wiping the bar and leans her elbows on the wood, her eyes distant, perhaps remembering a journey of her own. The music weaves a spell of nostalgia and peace. You transition from the ballad into a slow instrumental piece, mimicking the sound of the wind you heard on the plains earlier that day. Whoosh! Hum, whisper. You slide your fingers up the neck, creating high harmonic chimes that sound like distant bells. Ping, ting. The fire pops loudly, a log shifting in the grate, sending a shower of sparks up the chimney. Crack, spark. It is a percussion instrument accompanying your melody. You play for perhaps an hour, moving seamlessly from one tune to the next, never breaking the flow. You are painting pictures with sound, turning the common room into a landscape of memory. As you play the final chord of the set, you let the notes ring out until they fade into absolute silence. Ring, fade, silence. For a moment, no one moves. Then there is a gentle rippling of applause, not raucous clapping, but a soft, appreciative sound, like rain on leaves. You bow your head in thanks, placing your hand over the strings to silence them. The magic holds for a moment longer, then slowly the room returns to its normal rhythm. but the mood is softer now, gentler. The hour is late. The fire has burned down to a bed of glowing coals, deep red and pulsing with heat. The patrons are beginning to leave, wrapping themselves in heavy cloaks and stepping out into the windy night. Door open, gust, door close. You decide it is time to rest. You pack your lute away with care, securing the latches. Snap, click, you stand up, your legs stiff from sitting, and shoulder your pack. You approach the bar. The innkeeper smiles and hands you a heavy iron key. Number 4, at the top of the stairs. She says softly, "Sleep well, Bard." You take the key. It is cold and heavy. You take a candlestick from the counter, the flame flickering in the draught, flicker, shield. You walk to the staircase. The steps are old oak, warped in the middle by generations of feet. They creak as you ascend. Creak, step, creak. The shadows from your candle dance on the stairwell walls. Giant shapes moving with you. You reach the landing and find door number 4. You insert the key into the lock. Scrape, turn, click. The mechanism is stiff, but works. You push the door open and step into your room. It is small, nestled under the eaves of the roof. The ceiling slopes sharply on one side. There is a narrow bed with a thick wool blanket, a wash basin on a stand, and a small window with leaded glass. You place the candle on the bedside table. You can hear the wind more clearly up here, singing around the chimney pots. You sit on the edge of the bed. The mattress is stuffed with straw, but it yields comfortably. You begin to unlace your boots, your fingers working the leather knots. Pull, loosen. You are tired, a bone-deep weariness that feels earned and clean. You blow out the candle. Puff. Darkness fills the room, save for a square of moonlight on the floor. You lie back, pulling the quilt up to your chin, and listen to the wind until it carries you away. The morning light arrives not with a shout, but with a gentle, persistent prying at your eyelids. It filters through the leaded glass of the small window, casting a grid of diamond-shaped shadows across the rough wooden floorboards. You lie still for a moment, suspended in the warmth of the wool blankets, listening to the inn waking up beneath you. You hear the rhythmic thump-thump-thump of someone kneading dough in the kitchen below, and the faint metallic clatter of the grate being shaken out in the common room. Thump, clatter. You stretch your arms overhead, feeling your spine elongate and the stiffness of the previous day's march evaporate from your limbs. You throw back the quilt. Rustle. The air in the room is cool, nipping at your skin, motivating you to dress quickly. You pull on your linen tunic, your woolen trousers, and finally, your boots. You lace them tight, feeling the leather hug your ankles, offering the support you will need for the miles ahead. Pull, loop, knot. You pack your belongings with practiced efficiency. The lute goes into its case. The clasp snaps shut with a sound of finality. Click. You descend the stairs, the wood creaking familiarly under your weight. The common room is empty of patrons, filled only with the smell of fresh bread and wood polish. You leave the heavy iron key on the bar counter. Clink. The innkeeper is not there, but you leave a small silver coin next to the key, payment for the rest. You unbolt the heavy front door. Slide, creak. You step out into the morning. The village is wreathed in a low, clinging mist that dampens sound and softens the edges of the houses. A milk cart rattles past, the horse's breath puffing white in the chill air. You turn your collar up and head for the edge of the village, your boots striking a steady rhythm on the cobblestones. You are moving again. Leaving the village of River's Bend behind, the road conforms to the geography of the land, hugging the bank of the wide, slow-moving river that flows eastward. This is an easy road, level and smooth, made of packed earth that is soft underfoot. To your left, the river is a constant companion, a broad sheet of steel-grey water moving with a deceptive, powerful silence. Mist hovers over the surface in swirling tendrils, slowly burning off as the sun climbs higher. To your right, the land rises gently into rolling hills covered in dew-soaked pastures. You walk beneath the hanging branches of ancient willow trees that line the riverbank. Their long, slender whips of leaves trail in the water, creating tiny V-shaped ripples in the current. Swish, ripple. You watch a kingfisher, a flash of electric blue and copper, dart from a branch and dive into the water with hardly a splash. Zip, splash. It emerges a second later, a silver minnow wriggling in its beak, and returns to its perch. The air here smells of wet mud, green willow bark, and the faint, sweet decay of river weeds. It is a humid, organic scent. You pass a small wooden jetty where a flat-bottomed punt is tied up. The boat bobs gently in the current, straining slightly against its rope. Creak, bump. You pause to watch the water flowing around the pilings of the jetty. The water creates small eddies and whirlpools, spinning endlessly downstream. It is hypnotic. The river is the lifeblood of this valley, a road that moves itself, carrying leaves, twigs, and secrets to the distant sea. You adjust the strap of your pack, shifting the weight, and continue walking, matching your pace to the slow, steady flow of the water beside you. By mid-morning, the mist has lifted completely, revealing a sky of piercing, washed-out blue. The road curves sharply away from the river at a point marked by the old stone bridge. This is not a bridge you need to cross, but a ruin of a bridge that once spanned a tributary that has long since dried up. It stands now in a meadow of wildflowers, a beautiful, useless arch of grey limestone. You stop to admire the stonework. The arch is perfect, a semicircle of gravity-defying rock held together by nothing but pressure and friction. Vines of English ivy have claimed it, wrapping thick green tentacles around the base and draping over the parapet like green curtains. Rustle, flutter. You walk into the dry creek bed beneath the arch. The air here is cooler, shaded by the stone. You run your hand along the masonry. You can feel the chisel marks left by a mason 500 years ago. Rough, cold. It is a monument to permanence in a landscape of change. You sit on a large flat rock in the shadow of the bridge to retie a bootlace. As you sit, you notice the soundscape has changed. Away from the river, the dominant sound is the buzzing of insects in the tall grass and the distant, mournful call of a wood pigeon. Coo, coo, coo. It is a sleepy, lazy sound. A butterfly with wings of sulphur yellow lands on the warm stone next to your hand, opening and closing its wings slowly, sunning itself. Flap, pause, flap. You watch it for a long time, marveling at the delicate veins in its wings. This place feels like a pocket of time that the world has forgotten, a quiet corner where a bridge waits for a river that will never return. You stand up, brush the grass from your trousers, and climb back up the bank to the road. The road now leads you away from the open valley and towards the foothills that have been hazy purple shapes on the horizon for days. As the elevation rises, the landscape undergoes a dramatic transformation. The rolling pastures and willow trees give way to a darker, denser vegetation. You are approaching the boundary of the forest of echoes. The transition is marked by a sudden wall of trees, towering pines, firs, and spruces that stand like a fortress wall against the sky. You step across the threshold, passing from the bright, hot sunlight into the cool, cathedral gloom of the woods. The change in atmosphere is instant and profound. The temperature drops by 10 degrees. The air becomes still and heavy, scented powerfully with pine resin, damp earth, and crushed needles. Inhale, scent. The sound of your footsteps changes from a crisp crunch to a muffled thud as the path becomes a carpet of accumulated needles, inches thick. Thud, silence, thud. The light here is filtered, falling in distinct, slanted beams. God rays that pierce the canopy and illuminate floating dust motes and tiny flying insects. You look up. The trees are immensely tall, their trunks straight and bare until they explode into branches high above. They block out most of the sky, creating a perpetual twilight. The silence is different here. It is not an empty silence, but a listening silence. It feels as though the trees are aware of your presence. A squirrel chatters from a high branch, the sound echoing unnaturally loud in the quiet bouncing off the tree trunks. Chit, chit, echo. You walk deeper into the green shade, feeling like a diver descending into the depths of the ocean. You have been walking through the forest of echoes for 2 hours now, and the world outside has ceased to exist. There is only the path, the trees, and the filtered light. The forest floor is a chaotic, beautiful tapestry of life and decay. Giant ferns, their fronds unfurled in perfect fractals, crowd the edges of the path, brushing against your legs with a soft, dry whisper. Swish, rustle. Fallen logs, victims of ancient storms, lie rotting in the gloom, covered in thick blankets of emerald moss that look as soft as velvet. You stop to examine a cluster of mushrooms growing from the side of a decaying stump. They are bracket fungi, shaped like shells, striped with bands of brown, cream, and rust orange. You touch one. It is hard and woody, cool to the touch. Tap, solid. A little further on, you see a patch of ghost pipes, strange, pure white flowers that contain no chlorophyll, rising from the dark earth like wax candles. They are eerie and beautiful, thriving in the dark. The path begins to wind around massive boulders of granite, glacial erratics dropped here by the Ice Age, now wearing caps of moss and lichen. The silence is so deep that you can hear the blood pumping in your ears. Thump, thump. Occasionally, a breeze moves through the upper canopy, miles above your head. You hear it as a distant rushing sound, like the sea, causing the treetops to sway, while down here on the forest floor, the air remains perfectly still. It is a sanctuary of shadows. You feel small here, insignificant against the time scale of the trees, which have stood here since before your grandfather was born. You walk with respect, stepping lightly, a temporary guest in the house of the ancient wood. Deep within the verdant heart of the Forest of Echoes, the path widens unexpectedly into a perfect, circular glade. It is as if the great trees have stepped back to allow the sky to touch the earth. In the center of this natural sanctuary lies the Mirror Pool, a body of water so still it appears to be a sheet of polished obsidian dropped onto the forest floor. You stop at the edge, your boots sinking into a carpet of star moss that is thick and springy. Step. Sink. Soft. The silence here is absolute, a held breath of the world. You kneel by the water. The surface reflects the canopy above with such high fidelity that it is difficult to tell where the real trees end and the reflection begins. Reflect. Inverted. You see a single autumn leaf prematurely turned to gold, floating in the exact center of the pool. It does not move. It sits there, a speck of bright color on the black glass. You watch a water strider skate across the surface, its tiny legs creating dimples in the tension but no ripples. Skate, slide. You decide to rest here for a moment. You unbuckle your pack and set it down on a flat, moss-covered stone. Thud, sigh. You retrieve a small wooden cup from your belt. You dip it into the pool. Dip, swirl. The water is achingly cold, drawn from deep aquifers beneath the stone. You drink. It tastes of minerals and deep earth, clean and sharp. As you sit, a beam of sunlight manages to pierce the dense leaves above, falling like a spotlight onto the moss. In the warmth of that single beam, you see dust motes dancing in a chaotic, beautiful ballet. Dance. Spin. A small brown toad hops out from under a fern, blinking its golden eyes at you, its throat pulsing slowly. Hop, blink, you remain motionless, becoming part of the tableau. In this stillness, you feel the forest accepting you, not as an intruder, but as another transient element of its ancient life. Leaving the tranquility of the mirror pool behind, you find that the character of the path begins to change. The soft, needle-strewn floor of the deep woods gives way to a rugged, ascending track of grey slate and granite. You are beginning the climb out of the valley. Crunch, scrape, step. The incline is steady but demanding, requiring you to shorten your stride and lean forward, using your staff to push against the earth. Push. Breathe. As you ascend, the vegetation transforms around you. The towering, majestic oaks and pines of the lower forest are replaced by hardier, more stubborn trees. Twisted rowans with their clusters of bright red berries, and stunted birches that cling to the rocky soil with exposed, knobby roots. The air grows thinner and cooler with every 100 feet of elevation. You can hear your own breath now, a rhythmic huff that matches the cadence of your boots on the stone. Huff, step huff. You pause to catch your breath, turning to look back the way you came. Through gaps in the thinning trees, you catch glimpses of the forest canopy below, a vast, undulating sea of green that stretches back to the horizon. It looks impenetrable from up here, a solid mass of life. You turn back to the climb. The path winds around massive boulders, dropped by glaciers eons ago. They are covered in map-like patterns of grey and green lichen. You run your hand over one as you pass. It is rough like sandpaper and cool to the touch. Brush, grit. A mountain goat, perched impossibly high on a crag above you, watches your progress with mild curiosity before turning and bounding away with effortless grace. Bound, clatter. You press on, your legs burning with a pleasant exertion, driving you upward toward the open sky. You break the tree line just as the golden hour begins to descend upon the world. One moment you are walking amidst the scraggly pines. The next, you step out onto a windswept ridge of heather and rock, the sky opening up above you in a vast, limitless dome. The transition is breathtaking. You are now standing on the high shelf, a plateau that runs along the spine of the foothills. The sun is low in the west, a burning orb of molten gold that bathes the entire landscape in a rich, warm light. The heather, which covers the ground in a thick purple carpet, seems to glow from within. Glow, warmth. The wind here is constant and clean, stripping away the heat of the climb and cooling the sweat on your brow. Whoosh. Cool. You walk to the edge of the ridge and look down. The world is spread out below you like a map. You can see the dark mass of the Forest of Echoes, the thin silver line of the river, and the tiny toy-like cluster of smoke that marks the village of River's Bend. It all seems so small now, rendered insignificant by the scale of the mountains rising behind you. The shadows of the peaks are stretching out across the valley, long fingers of violet darkness reaching for the east. You watch a pair of eagles soaring on the thermals, circling higher and higher without flapping their wings. Soar, circle. They are the masters of this high domain. The light is changing rapidly now, shifting from gold to orange to a deep bruised purple as the sun sinks behind the jagged silhouette of the western range. Shift, fade. The air grows sharp with the promise of a cold night. You pull your cloak tighter around your shoulders, feeling the heavy wool settle. Wrap, secure. You are alone on the roof of the world, watching the day end. With the light failing fast, your priority shifts from observation to shelter. You know this trail well, and you make for a specific formation of rocks known as the Traveler's Alcove. It is a shallow cave, little more than a deep overhang of granite, but it faces south, away from the prevailing wind, and remains dry in all but the fiercest storms. You reach it just as the first stars begin to puncture the twilight. Step. Arrive. The floor of the alcove is smooth, Dry sand, protected by the rock above. You drop your heavy pack with a groan of relief. Thud, sigh. You do not build a large fire tonight. Fuel is scarce at this altitude. Instead, you gather a small pile of dry heather roots and dead gorse branches. You construct a tiny, efficient pyramid. Stack, strike. The tinder catches quickly, burning with a bright, hot flame that smells sweet and resinous. Crackle, pop. You feed it sparingly. The fire creates a small sphere of warmth and light in the vast darkness of the mountains. You unroll your sleeping mat, a thick sheepskin that smells of lanolin. Unroll, soft. You set your small pot on the edge of the fire to warm some water for tea. You eat a simple meal of dried meat and hard cheese, chewing slowly, staring into the flames. Chew, stare. The firelight dances on the rough stone walls of the alcove, illuminating ancient scratches and soot marks left by travelers who have sought shelter here for centuries. You are part of a long lineage of wanderers. Outside the circle of firelight, the wind howls softly, a lonely sound that makes your small shelter feel all the more precious. You are a tiny spark of life in a landscape of cold stone. Night has fully claimed the mountains. The fire has burned down to a bed of glowing orange embers, casting a dim red light around the alcove. You step away from the warmth for a moment, moving to the edge of the ridge to look at the sky. The view stops your breath. Without the interference of city lights or forest canopy, the stars are overwhelming. They are not just points of light, they are thick clouds of diamond dust smeared across the black velvet of the void. Shimmer, gaze. The Milky Way is a distinct, luminous band, a river of light flowing from horizon to horizon. You can see the constellations clearly, the hunter, the bear, the swan. They look close enough to touch. The air is freezing, biting at your nose and ears, but the beauty keeps you rooted to the spot. You return to the alcove and pick up your lute. The wood is cold. You sit cross-legged on your sheepskin, facing the open dark. You do not play a song for an audience, for there is no one here but the wind and the stones. You play for the mountain itself. You pluck the strings gently, playing a slow minor key melody that mimics the silence of the high peaks. Pluck, ring, echo. The notes drift out into the emptiness, fragile and fleeting. Hum. Fade. It is a conversation between the human spirit and the indifferent majesty of nature. The music seems to hang in the thin air, crystalline and pure. You play for a long time, your fingers moving instinctively, your mind empty of all thought save for the sound. Finally, you let the last chord decay into silence. Ring, silence. You place the lute back in its case. Click. You wrap yourself in your cloak and lie down on the sheepskin. The rock beneath you is hard, but the earth is stable. You close your eyes, the image of the stars still burning behind your eyelids, and drift towards sleep. The awakening on the mountain ridge is a sharp, sensory return to the world. You open your eyes to a silence so profound it feels heavy, broken only by the thin, high whistle of the wind passing over the jagged rocks of the overhang. The fire has long since died, leaving only a circle of cold, grey ash. You sit up, pulling the sheepskin tight around your shoulders. Shiver, pull. The air in the alcove is frigid, snapping at your nose and cheeks with invisible teeth. You breathe out, and a cloud of white vapor billows from your lips, hanging in the still air like a ghost before dissipating. Exhale, mist. You crawl out from under the granite shelf and stand up to face the dawn. The sun has not yet crested the horizon, but the sky to the east is a gradient of bruised colors, deep indigo fading to violet, and then to a band of burning, cold crimson at the edge of the world. Frost has colonized the landscape during the night. Every blade of heather, every rough stone, and every strap of your pack is coated in a delicate, crystalline fur of white ice. Crunch, crackle, You touch a stone, the frost melts instantly under your warm fingertip, leaving a dark, wet spot. You look at the distant peaks. The highest summits are already catching the first direct light, glowing with an ethereal, rose-gold fire known as alpenglow. It is a light that looks more liquid than solar. You do not light a fire this morning. There is no wood, and the cold urges movement. You chew on a piece of dried fruit, the sweetness sharp on your tongue. You pack your gear quickly, your fingers clumsy with the cold, until you get them moving. You secure your cloak, pick up your staff, and turn your back on the sunrise, ready to descend into the shadowed valley that awaits below. The descent from the high shelf is a study in controlled gravity. The path is narrow and steep, covered in loose shale and scree that shifts unpredictably under your boots. Slide, rattle, crunch. You have to walk with your knees bent, placing your staff firmly downhill before taking each step, turning your body into a tripod. Plant, step, slide. The sound of the shifting stone echoes loudly in the quiet morning. As you drop in elevation, the frost begins to thin, retreating into the shadows of the boulders. The air grows marginally warmer, though it is still crisp and thin. You are moving down through the cloud zone, a band of morning mist that clings to the waist of the mountain. You walk into the white fog. Visibility drops to 20 feet. The world becomes a small grey room that moves with you. The sound is dampened here. Even the crunch of your boots sounds muffled, as if wrapped in wool. Muffle, thud. Moisture beads on your eyebrows and collects on the wool of your cloak. Drip, damp. It is a ghostly, solitary experience. You see shapes looming in the mist, twisted juniper bushes that look like crouching figures, and tall rock spires that look like ruined towers, only to resolve into ordinary nature as you get closer. Loom, reveal. You focus entirely on the path, watching for loose rocks or slick mud. It is a meditative trance of movement. After an hour of careful stepping, the mist begins to shred and thin. Sudden windows open in the whiteness, revealing flashes of the green valley floor far below. Then, quite suddenly, you drop below the cloud layer entirely, and the world bursts back into color, the deep green of the pines and the sparkle of running water greeting you like an old friend. At the base of the scree slope, the terrain levels out into a high-altitude basin, a bowl of rock and hardy grass carved by ancient ice. Here, you encounter the source of the river you followed yesterday, the Weeping Wall. It is a sheer cliff face of dark basalt, 100 feet high, from which countless small springs emerge. The water does not fall in a single torrent, but cascades down the rock in thousands of tiny rivulets, creating a shimmering, lace-like curtain of white water. Trickle, splash, hiss. The sound is a multi-layered symphony of liquid impacting stone. You approach the base of the wall. The air here is saturated with spray, cool and refreshing against your skin. Moss grows thick and lush on the boulders at the foot of the cliff, fed by the constant moisture. It is a vibrant neon green contrasting sharply with the black rock. You reach out and press your hand against a patch of moss. Squish. Cool. It is like a wet sponge, dripping water between your fingers. You find a spot where a clear, steady stream falls into a rock pool. You kneel and refill your water skin. Glug, glug. The water is freezing, merely seconds away from being snow. You cup your hands and wash the sweat of the descent from your face. Splash, gasp. It wakes you up completely. You sit on a dry rock for a moment, listening to the wall weep. It is a melancholic but beautiful sound, the mountain shedding its winter weight in the form of water. A dipper, a small, round bird, bobs on a stone in the middle of the stream, then walks straight underwater to hunt for insects, defying the current. Bob, dive. You watch it emerge a moment later, shake its feathers dry, and fly off. You stand up, feeling renewed by the spray and the cold water, and locate the trail that follows the growing stream out of the basin. Following the stream down from the basin, the landscape undergoes a gentle softening. The harsh, jagged rocks of the high country give way to rolling hills of soil and grass. You enter a new woodland, distinct from the dark pine forests of the previous day. This is the Golden Wood, a vast stand of birch and aspen trees. The light here is extraordinary. The trunks of the birches are paper white, peeling in curling strips that flutter in the breeze like parchment scrolls. Flutter, rustle. The leaves above are a trembling canopy of pale green and yellow, filtering the sunlight into a soft, diffused glow that makes the air itself seem golden. Shimmer, glow. Walking here is quiet. The ground is covered in a thick layer of soft grasses and fallen leaves that have turned to mulch. Soft step. The sound of the wind in the aspen leaves is unique, a high, dry, rattling sound, like the shaking of 1,000 tiny tambourines. Shh, rattle, shh. It is a busy, whispering noise. You reach out and peel a loose strip of bark from a tree. It feels like fine paper, dusty and smooth. Peel, smooth, you breathe in. The air smells sweet and dry, lacking the sharp resin scent of the pines. It smells of sun-warmed wood and dry grass. A herd of deer moves through the trees to your right. They are camouflaged against the vertical lines of the trunks, their tawny coats blending perfectly with the shadows. They freeze as you pass, their large ears swiveling towards you. Freeze, watch. You do not stop, moving steadily so as not to spook them. They watch you go, then silently melt back into the woods. The path here is wide and inviting, a tunnel of white and gold that leads you gently downwards towards the lowlands. The sun has passed its zenith and begun its slow slide into the afternoon when the path brings you to a solitary structure by the side of the road. It is a way shrine, a small roofed shelter built of dry stone, dedicated to the guardian spirit of travelers. It is old, its roof covered in a thick layer of green turf and wild flowers. You stop here, as is the custom. Stop, rest. Inside the small, open alcove, there is a stone shelf. On it sit the offerings of those who have passed before. A smooth river stone, a handful of dried berries, a carved wooden figure, a copper penny. You unbuckle your pack and lower it to the ground. Thud. You sit on the stone bench built into the wall of the shrine. The stone is cool and worn smooth by centuries of resting travelers. You take a moment of silence. You are not praying exactly, but acknowledging the road. You reach into your pocket and find a small white quartz crystal you picked up on the scree slope earlier that morning. You place it on the shelf, adding your token to the collection. Place, clink. It catches a ray of sunlight, glowing faintly. You look at the carving on the back wall of the shrine. It is a simple relief of a pair of boots and a staff, worn almost flat by time. It reminds you that you are never truly alone on the path. You are walking in the footsteps of thousands. A sense of connection washes over you. You are part of the great, flowing river of humanity that moves across the earth. You drink some water, eat an apple, and listen to the wind rustling the wild flowers on the roof. Rustle, peace. Rested and centered, you pick up your staff, shoulder your burden, and step back onto the road, ready for the miles that remain before sunset. Leaving the sanctuary of the Way Shrine, you continue your descent, and the landscape undergoes another gentle metamorphosis. The golden wood begins to thin, the aspen and birch trees stepping back to reveal a patchwork quilt of human industry. You have entered the green valleys, a region of rolling farmland that has been cultivated for 1,000 years. The transition is marked by the appearance of dry stone walls, grey ribbons of stacked limestone that dissect the hills into emerald squares of pasture. The air changes here. It loses the dry, woody scent of the forest and takes on the rich, complex aroma of the agricultural earth. You smell damp soil, fresh manure, and the sweet, cloying scent of clover. Inhale, rich. The road widens and becomes edged with high hedgerows, dense tangles of hawthorn, blackthorn, and wild rose. These hedges are teeming with life. You hear the constant rustling of small birds, wrens and sparrows, darting deep within the protective thorns. Chirp, rustle. A pheasant bursts from the undergrowth with a raucous cry and a flurry of copper feathers, startling you for a moment before gliding heavily into the next field. Squawk, flap. You pass a gate where a herd of dairy cows is gathered, waiting for the evening milking. They are large, placid beasts with coats of black and white. They watch you pass with large, liquid eyes, chewing their cud in a slow, rhythmic sideways motion. Chew, stare. One of them lets out a low, resonant moo that vibrates in your chest. Moo. Low. You reach out and scratch the forehead of the cow nearest the gate. Her hair is coarse and curly, warm from the sun. She leans into your hand, pushing against it with surprising strength. Push. Warmth. You smile, pat her neck, and walk on. This is a landscape of peace and plenty, where the rhythm of life is dictated by the seasons and the needs of the herd. It feels settled, safe, and deeply grounded in the soil. A mile further down the lane, your progress is halted by a living river of wool. A flock of sheep is being moved from one pasture to another, filling the road from bank to bank. You step up onto the grassy verge to let them pass. It is a chaotic, sensory immersion. The air is instantly filled with the heavy, oily scent of lanolin and the dust kicked up by hundreds of tiny hooves. Dust, scent. The sound is deafening. A chorus of bleating from the deep guttural calls of the ewes to the high-pitched cries of the lambs. Ma. They flow past you like a grey tide, a mass of bobbing backs and twitching ears. You watch the way they move, a hive mind reacting to the dogs that flank them. The sheepdogs are black and white collies, moving low to the ground, eyes fixed on the flock with intense predatory focus. They do not bark, they stare. Crouch, stare. A whistle cuts through the noise. Wee woo. It is the shepherd walking behind the flock with a crooked staff. At his signal, the dogs dart to the right, turning the lead sheep through a gate. The flock wheels like a school of fish, pouring into the fresh field. Turn, flow. The shepherd tips his flat cap to you as he passes. Grand evening for it, he says, his face weathered like old leather. That it is, you reply. Within minutes, the road is empty again, leaving only the lingering dust and a few tufts of wool caught on the briars of the hedge. You pluck a piece of wool from a thorn. It is soft and greasy to the touch. Pluck, rub. You roll it between your fingers, feeling the natural waterproofing that keeps the sheep dry on the high hills. You drop it and step back onto the road, the silence returning, but now it feels emptier, the ghost of the flock still hanging in the air. The sun is now dipping perilously close to the western horizon, turning the sky into a watercolor wash of apricot and violet. The shadows of the hedgerows stretch across the lane, creating long bars of darkness that you step through rhythmically. Light, shadow, light. You begin to scan the landscape for a place to rest. You are too far from the next village to reach it before dark, so you look for a field barn. These are small, solitary stone structures built into the corners of remote fields to store hay and shelter animals in winter. You spot one on a hillside to your left, a squat building of grey stone with a slate roof, glowing orange in the sunset. You climb the wooden stile over the wall. Climb, hop. The grass in this field has been cut for hay, leaving a short, yellow stubble that crunches softly under your boots. Crunch, step, you approach the barn. It looks abandoned for the season. The wooden door is weathered and grey, hanging slightly askew on rusted iron hinges. You push it gently, creak, scrape. It opens, revealing a dark, dry interior. You step inside. The air is still and smells powerfully of old dry hay and stone dust. Inhale, dry. Shafts of golden light pierce through the ventilation slits in the walls, illuminating dust motes dancing in the gloom. You check the floor. It is flagged with stone and swept relatively clean, though there are drifts of old straw in the corners. It is dry, it is out of the wind, and it is private. It is a palace for a traveller. You drop your pack in a corner where the light falls, claiming the space. Thud. Claim. You walk back to the door and look out at the valley, watching the colours fade from the land as the blue hour begins to descend. You decide to make your camp just outside the barn door, using the stone wall as a windbreak while enjoying the open sky. You gather a few loose stones to create a small fire ring. Lift, place. Fuel is easy to find here. The hedgerow is full of deadwood. You collect an armful of dry hawthorn branches and a few handfuls of dried grass. You build your fire. Stack, spark, flame. The fire catches quickly, the dry wood burning hot and clean. Crackle, snap. You set your kettle to boil. While you wait, you lay out your bedding inside the barn, rolling out the sheepskin on a pile of straw to create a soft mattress. Roll, pat. You return to the fire as the water boils. You make a cup of herbal tea, mint and chamomile, to settle the stomach. You sit on a large stone by the fire, wrapping your hands around the warm mug. Warmth, sip. The valley is quieting down. The cows have settled in the lower fields. You can no longer hear them. The birds have ceased their singing, replaced by the creatures of the twilight. A bat flits overhead, a frantic jerking silhouette against the darkening sky, hunting for moths. Flit, dive. You watch the smoke from your fire rise straight up in the still air, a grey pillar connecting the earth to the sky. You feel a profound sense of solitude, but not loneliness. You are simply another creature seeking warmth in the night. You eat a simple supper of hard bread and a crisp apple, the sounds of your own chewing loud in the silence. Crunch, chew. You throw the apple core into the hedge for the badgers to find. The fire dies down to embers, casting a soft red glow on the stone of the barn wall. Night has fully fallen. The valley is now a bowl of darkness, dotted with the distant twinkling lights of farmhouses miles away. You extinguish your small fire, scattering the ashes and pouring the last of your water over them to ensure they are cold. Hiss, steam. You retreat inside the barn and pull the door shut, latching it with a simple wooden peg. Creak, thud. The darkness inside is absolute, save for thin slivers of moonlight coming through the ventilation slits, painting stripes of silver on the floor. You lie down on your sheepskin bed. It is surprisingly comfortable, the straw beneath providing a deep cushion. Rustle, sink. You pull your heavy cloak over you. The barn is not silent. It has its own acoustic life. You hear the wind sighing around the slate roof corners. Sigh, whoosh. You hear the scurry of a mouse in the straw, a tiny, frantic sound that stops as quickly as it starts. Scritch, pause. High in the rafters, something shifts. You listen. A soft ghostly hiss echoes down. A barn owl, the landlord of this place. Hiss. Silence. You are a guest in its house. You do not move, letting your breathing slow to match the rhythm of the night. You smell the dry hay, the stone, and the faint, lingering scent of the wood smoke on your clothes. It is a primal, comforting sensory palate. Your mind begins to drift, untethering from the geography of the map and floating into the geography of dreams. You feel the solidity of the stone floor beneath you, holding you up, grounding you. The walking is done. The road is waiting. For now, there is only the dark and the rest. You close your eyes, and the barn fades away. The first light of dawn does not enter the barn as a flood. but as a series of sharp silver blades cutting through the ventilation slits in the stone walls. These beams of light slice through the darkness, illuminating the millions of dust motes that hang suspended in the still air, swirling in slow, hypnotic eddies whenever you move. You open your eyes to this quiet, dusty cathedral. The silence of the night has been replaced by the morning chorus, but it is muffled here, filtered through the thick slate roof. You hear the chirping of sparrows nesting in the eaves. A busy, sociable sound. Chirp, twitter, scuffle. You sit up, the straw of your mattress crunching softly beneath the sheepskin. You stretch your arms high, your fingers brushing the cool, dry air. You feel rested, the deep, animal sleep of the barn having restored your energy completely. You begin the slow process of packing away your bed. You shake out the sheepskin, sending a shower of straw fragments fluttering to the floor. Shake, dust, roll. You secure it to your pack. You eat a handful of dried nuts and raisins for breakfast, the simple sugars waking up your metabolism. You walk to the heavy wooden door and lift the latch. Clack, lift. You push the door open. It swings out with a groan of rusted iron, revealing the world outside. The valley has vanished. In its place is a sea of white. A dense, heavy river mist has rolled in during the night, filling the hollows of the land with an opaque cotton wool fog. It is thick and silent, hiding the trees, the hills, and the sky. You step out into it, and the cool moisture settles instantly on your face like a soft, wet cloth. The world has been erased, leaving only the white void and the ground beneath your feet. Stepping away from the shelter of the barn, you are immediately swallowed by the mist. Visibility is reduced to perhaps 10 yards, creating a sensation of intense isolation and intimacy. You are walking in a small, moving bubble of clarity. The air is heavy and damp, muffling sound in a way that feels almost supernatural. The crunch of your boots on the gravel track sounds distant, as if coming from someone else. Crunch, muffle, crunch. You walk slowly, letting the road guide you. Looming shapes appear out of the white gloom. A fence post, a hawthorn bush, a stone wall, only to resolve into familiar objects as you get close, then vanish again behind you as if they never existed. Loom, reveal, fade. You pause to examine a spider web strung between two stalks of cow parsley. It is a masterpiece of engineering, draped in thousands of tiny, perfect spheres of dew. Each droplet acts like a lens, holding a miniature, inverted image of the grey world. Glisten, hang. You resist the urge to touch it, leaving the perfection undisturbed. The moisture in the air condenses on your wool cloak, turning the surface into a glistening coat of tiny jewels. You can taste the water in the air. It tastes of clean rain and wet grass. You hear the sound of a sheep bleating somewhere to your left. But you cannot see it. The sound is disembodied, floating in the whiteness. It is a dreamlike state where the geography of the land is suspended. There is no horizon, no distance, only the immediate here and now. You focus on the rhythm of your breath and the feel of the earth, trusting the path to lead you through the cloud. As the morning progresses, the sun begins to win its battle against the moisture. The white wall of mist starts to brighten, glowing with an inner, pearl-like luminosity. Then, slowly, it begins to shred. Tattered ribbons of fog drift upwards, revealing patches of brilliant blue sky. Drift, tear, blue. The landscape reassembles itself around you like a puzzle being solved. You find that the road has changed character beneath your feet. The gravel track has merged with an ancient paved causeway, the Old King's Road. It is a surface of flat, fitted stones, laid down by an empire that crumbled 1,000 years ago. The stones are worn smooth and concave by the passage of millions of feet and wheels. Step, solid. Step, Moss grows in the cracks between the pavers, creating a pattern of grey and green. Walking on this road feels different. There is a solidity, a resonance to the stone that speaks of history. You can feel the intention of the builders, the desire to connect distant places with a straight, enduring line. The sun breaks through fully now, burning off the last of the mist in a rush of steam. Burn, clear. The heat returns, baking the damp stones until they begin to radiate warmth through the soles of your boots. You pass a milestone, a weathered pillar of granite leaning at a drunken angle in the ditch. The inscription is worn away by wind and rain, leaving only faint, illegible shadows of letters. You run your fingers over the rough stone, tracing the ghost of a message left for travelers who have been dust for centuries. You are walking through time as much as space. The ancient road leads you steadily southward, and by the early afternoon a new scent begins to weave itself into the breeze. It is a sharp, bracing smell that cuts through the aroma of the warm earth, the smell of salt. You are approaching the coast. The landscape responds to this proximity. The lush, tall trees of the inland valleys give way to stunted, wind-sculpted oaks and hardy pines that lean permanently away from the sea, bent by the prevailing gales. Lean, twist. The soil becomes sandy and light, pale in color. The grass changes from the soft green of the pasture to the coarse, wiry marram grass of the dunes, hissing dryly in the wind. Hiss, scratch. You hear the cry of a seagull, a high, lonely sound that pierces the air. Caw, caw, caw. You look up to see a pair of them wheeling in the blue sky, their white wings flashing in the sun. The sound of the world changes too. Beneath the rustle of the wind and the call of the birds, there is a new, constant bass note, a low, rhythmic roaring that you feel in your chest as much as you hear with your ears. Roar, hum. It is the voice of the ocean. The anticipation builds in your chest. There is something primal about reaching the edge of the land, the boundary where the solid earth surrenders to the fluid chaos of the water. You quicken your pace slightly, your staff tapping a faster rhythm on the stones. The horizon ahead is a flat, hard line, waiting to be revealed. You climb a final sandy rise, your boots slipping slightly in the loose grit, pushing upward toward the crest of the dunes. You crest the final rise, and the world opens up in a spectacle of immense blue. You are standing on the edge of the chalk cliffs, looking down 300 feet to the churning Atlantic. The horizon is a razor-sharp line where the dark blue of the ocean meets the lighter azure of the sky. The scale is overwhelming, vast, deep, blue. Below you, the waves are rolling in with relentless, mechanical power. You watch a single wave form far out, a ridge of dark water that rises and curls as it approaches the shore, finally collapsing in an explosion of white foam against the jagged rocks at the base of the cliff. Crash, roar, hiss. The sound takes seconds to reach you, a delayed thunder. You can feel the vibration of the impact through the soles of your boots. The air here is turbulent, an updraft of wind striking the cliff face and shooting upwards, carrying with it the taste of brine and seaweed. You take a deep breath, filling your lungs with the cleanest air on earth. Inhale, salt. To your right, standing on a promontory of rock that juts out into the sea, is the White Tower Lighthouse. It is a squat, sturdy cylinder of whitewashed stone, gleaming brilliantly in the sun. Its glass lantern room reflects the light like a diamond. It stands as a silent sentinel, a symbol of safety on the edge of the dangerous deep. You walk towards it along the cliff path, the wind whipping your cloak around your legs. Flap, snap, you are walking on the very rim of the continent. To your left is the solid earth, to your right is the infinite water. It is a place of endings and beginnings. You feel small, humbled, and exhilaratingly alive. You find a patch of sea thrift, pink flowers growing in a cushion on the cliff edge. and sit down to watch the eternal motion of the tides. You remain seated on the cushion of pink sea thrift for a long time, entranced by the relentless motion of the ocean. The sun has begun its final descent toward the watery horizon, transforming the sea from a deep, opaque blue into a shimmering sheet of hammered bronze and gold. Shimmer, glint, burn. The light catches the crest of every wave, creating a blinding, shifting mosaic of brilliance. You watch the seabirds returning to their nests on the cliff face below. They are fulmars and kittiwakes, gliding on stiff wings, mastering the updrafts with effortless grace. Glide, bank, dive. Their calls drift up to you, softened by the distance and the wind, a lonely, crying sound that belongs to the edge of the world. The wind itself is beginning to change character as the evening approaches. The sharp, gusty gale of the afternoon is settling into a steady, heavy breeze that presses against your back like a firm hand. You can taste the salt on your lips, a constant, briny reminder of the ocean's power. You run your hand through the grass beside you. It is coarse and dry, singing with a high, sibilant hiss as the wind passes through it. Hiss, shh, hiss. Down below, the tide is coming in. You can hear the change in the rhythm of the waves. The crashes are becoming heavier, deeper, booming against the hollow caves at the base of the cliffs. Boom, echo, withdraw. It is the heartbeat of the planet, slow and regular. You feel a profound sense of perspective here. The land behind you is solid and known, full of roads and villages and history. The sea before you is wild, fluid, and unknown. You are the watcher on the threshold. You pull your cloak tighter against the cooling air, stand up, and turn your face toward the lighthouse, the white tower glowing pink in the setting sun, promising shelter from the coming night. You walk the final 100 yards along the narrow cliff path to the base of the White Tower. Up close, the lighthouse is immense, a tapering column of whitewashed granite that seems to grow directly out of the bedrock. You can see the individual blocks of stone fitted together with seamless precision to withstand the fury of the winter storms. You approach the heavy entrance door. It is made of oak, inches thick, and painted a bright, cheerful red, though the paint is scoured and faded by the salt spray. Weathered, solid. You grasp the iron ring handle. It is cold and pitted with rust. You turn it. Clank, heavy. You push the door inward. It swings on massive hinges with a deep, resonant groan, revealing the interior. You step over the high stone threshold and pull the door shut behind you. Thud. Latch. The transformation is instantaneous and jarring. The roar of the wind and the crashing of the waves are cut off as if by a knife, replaced by a dense, heavy silence. The air inside is still and cool, smelling powerfully of paraffin oil, brass polish, and damp limestone. Inhale, oil, stone. You are standing in the circular entrance hall. The walls are painted white, curving up beside you. It is coarse and dry, singing with a high, sibilant hiss as the wind passes through it. Hiss, shh, hiss. Down below, the tide is coming in. You can hear the change in the rhythm of the waves. The crashes are becoming heavier, deeper, booming against the hollow caves at the base of the cliffs. Boom, echo, withdraw. It is the heartbeat of the planet, slow and regular. You feel a profound sense of perspective here. The land behind you is solid and known, full of roads and villages and history. The sea before you is wild, fluid, and unknown. You are the watcher on the threshold. You pull your cloak tighter against the cooling air, stand up, and turn your face towards the lighthouse, the white tower glowing pink in the setting sun, promising shelter from the coming night. You begin the ascent. The spiral staircase is narrow, the iron steps ringing softly under your boots with a metallic, musical note. Clang, ring, step. Your hand slides along the polished wooden handrail, which is smooth and dark from the touch of 1,000 hands before yours. You climb steadily, winding around the central column of the tower. You pass small, slit windows set deep into the thick walls. Through the thick glass you see flashes of the darkening sky and the grey sea, but they feel distant now, like paintings in frames. Glimpse, turn, climb. You pass the storage levels. A room filled with coiled ropes smelling of hemp and tar, a room stacked with wooden crates of supplies, and a room housing the great water tanks. Each level is a self-contained world, silent and waiting. Finally, you reach the living quarters, a circular room located near the top of the tower. The keeper is there, an old man with a beard like white sea foam, sitting in a rocking chair by a small coal stove. He does not speak as you enter. Words are scarce in a lighthouse. He simply nods, a gesture of welcome and recognition. Nod, rock. He points to a kettle on the stove. You pour yourself a mug of tea. It is strong and dark, sweetened with molasses. You sit on a stool opposite him. The heat from the stove radiates outward, warming the circular room. The walls here are lined with wood paneling, giving the space the feeling of a ship's cabin. You sip your tea, listening to the wind buffeting the stone walls outside. It is a dull, distant thudding, a reminder of the storm you have escaped. The keeper takes a pocket watch from his vest. He checks the time. Click, snap. He stands up. It is time to light the lamp. You finish your tea and follow him up the final steep ladder to the lantern room. You emerge into the lantern room, the crown jewel of the lighthouse. The walls here are entirely glass, offering a 360-degree view of the horizon. The sun has set, leaving a band of deep purple on the water, while the stars are beginning to pierce the black canopy above. In the center of the room stands the lens. It is a masterpiece of optical engineering, a Fresnel lens the size of a wine barrel. It is a beehive of glass prisms, hundreds of them, arranged in concentric rings to capture and magnify the light. Glass, prism, ring. The brass frame that holds the glass is polished to a mirror shine reflecting the starlight. The keeper opens a small door in the base of the lens. He strikes a match. Scritch. Flare. He touches it to the wick of the oil lamp inside. A bright yellow flame springs to life, instantly magnified by the prisms into a blinding ball of white fire. Flame, magnify. He engages the clockwork mechanism that rotates the lens. He turns a heavy iron crank. Crank, click, crank. The weights descend in the central shaft, and the great glass hive begins to turn. Spin, silence. It rotates with absolute smoothness, floating on a bath of mercury. You watch the beam. A solid cone of light cuts through the darkness, sweeping across the ocean's surface. Sweep, flash, sweep. It illuminates the white caps of the waves for a split second before moving on. It is a rhythmic, hypnotic pulse of light. Light, dark, light, dark. You stand mesmerized by the rotation. The machine is silent, save for the faint ticking of the clockwork and the low hum of the draft. It is a lighthouse heartbeat, sending its message of safety out into the void, mile after mile, hour after hour. Leaving the keeper to his watch, you descend the ladder back to the living quarters. The circular room is dimly lit by the glow of the stove and a single oil lamp on the table. Shadows curl around the curved walls, soft and comforting. You prepare for sleep. You unroll your bedding on the narrow bunk built into the curve of the wall. It is like sleeping in a wooden cradle. Unroll, tuck. You take off your boots, placing them neatly by the door. You hang your cloak on a peg, where it sways slightly in the draft. You lie down on the bunk. The mattress is firm, smelling of dried lavender and clean linen. You pull the heavy naval blanket up to your chin. Pull, warmth. You lie still and listen. Now that you are horizontal, you can hear the ocean more clearly. It vibrates through the stone of the tower. It is a deep, rhythmic bass note, boom, hush, boom, hush. It is the sound of the earth breathing. You watch the reflection of the lighthouse beam as it sweeps past the window. Every 10 seconds, a faint pulse of light brightens the room, then fades back to shadow. Pulse, fade, pulse, fade. It is a visual lullaby, perfectly synchronized with the sound of the waves. You feel incredibly safe here, suspended high above the water, protected by stone and glass and light. The journey of the day, the mist, the road, the cliff, begins to blur in your mind. You are no longer a traveler on the road. You are a resident of the tower, a stationary point in a moving world. You close your eyes, timing your breath to the sweep of the light. Inhale, flash. Exhale, dark. The rhythm takes hold of you, pulling you down into the deep, heavy waters of sleep. The night passes in a rhythmic trance of light and shadow, governed by the mechanical heartbeat of the lens above. You drift in and out of a shallow, restful slumber, anchored by the sensation of the tower standing firm against the elements. Outside the thick granite walls, the wind has risen to a gale, howling around the cylindrical structure with a high, mournful keen that sounds like a choir of ghosts. Howl, whistle, moan. But inside, the storm is nothing more than a distant lullaby. You are encased in stone, warmth, and the smell of lamp oil. Occasionally, a heavy wave strikes the base of the cliff with a force that sends a tremor up through the bedrock, vibrating gently through the frame of your bunk. Thud. Tremble. It is a comforting sensation, a reminder of the strength of the foundation. Every few hours you hear the soft footsteps of the keeper on the iron stairs as he ascends to wind the clockwork mechanism. Clank, step, wind. You hear the ratcheting sound of the weights being raised, resetting the time of the light. Click, click, click. It is the sound of vigilance. You turn over in the narrow bunk, pulling the wool blanket tighter. The rhythmic sweep of the beam cuts through your eyelids, a soft pulse of brightness followed by 4 seconds of dark. Flash, 1, 2, 3, 4. Flash. It becomes a meditative focus, slowing your breathing until it matches the rotation of the glass hive. You are sleeping inside a machine designed to save lives, a beacon of order in a chaotic world. The storm rages, the sea churns, but you are warm, dry, and safe, suspended in the eye of the light. The gale blows itself out in the grey hours before dawn, leaving behind a silence that is almost startling in its intensity. You wake naturally, the rhythm of the storm replaced by the soft rhythmic crying of the gulls. Cry, wake. You open your eyes. The circular room is filled with a pale, watery light that reflects off the whitewashed curves of the walls. You sit up, the wool blanket falling away. The air in the room is cool now, the stove having burned down to embers during the night. You stretch your arms, feeling the stiffness of the stone floor in your joints, but it is a good stiffness, born of rest. You swing your legs out of the bunk. Swing, touch. Your feet find the wooden floorboards. You walk to the small window set deep in the wall. The glass is crusted with dried salt spray, turning the view into a blurry impressionist painting. You wipe a small circle clear with your sleeve. Rub, squeak. Outside, the ocean has calmed significantly. It is an expanse of heaving grey steel, rolling in long, oily swells that catch the morning light. The sky is a chaotic tapestry of broken clouds, torn apart by the storm, allowing shafts of brilliant pale yellow sunlight to strike the water in dazzling patches. Shine, roll. You can see whitecaps far out to sea, but the violence has passed. You turn back to the room. The keeper is already up, polishing the brass fittings of the stove with a rag. Polish, rub. He nods to you, his blue eyes crinkling at the corners. The kettle is on, he says simply. You smell the aroma of fresh tea and toasted bread rising from the stovetop. It is the smell of survival, of another night successfully navigated. You dress quickly, eager to step out into the clean, washed world. After a simple breakfast of hardtack biscuits and strong tea, you ask the keeper for permission to visit the Lantern Gallery, the narrow iron walkway that encircles the top of the tower outside the glass room. He hands you a heavy key. Clank. You climb the final ladder and unlock the heavy storm door. Turn. Push. The wind hits you instantly, stripping the breath from your lungs. It is cold, fresh, and exhilarating. Gasp. Wind. You step out onto the metal grating. You are 300 feet above the churning sea. You grip the railing tightly. The iron is freezing and wet with spray. Grip. Cold. You walk slowly around the circumference of the tower. To the west, the infinite ocean stretches out to the curve of the earth, a vast breathing entity. To the east, you see the land you traveled yesterday. It looks different from this vantage point. You can see the white line of the road winding through the dunes, the patchwork quilt of the green fields, and the dark mass of the distant forest. It is a map of your journey. You look down at the base of the cliff. The tide is out, revealing a landscape of jagged black rocks and tidal pools that glitter like mirrors, glisten, reflect. Seals are hauling themselves out onto the rocks to bask in the returning sun. They look like sleek, grey slugs from this height. Bask, flop. You feel a profound sense of vertigo and awe. You are a bird, a cloud, a watcher. The air here is the purest you have ever tasted, scrubbed clean by 1,000 miles of ocean. You take a deep breath, holding it for a moment, letting the salt and the cold permeate your being. Inhale, hold, release. You are standing on the beacon of the world. You re-enter the lantern room, locking the storm door against the wind. Slam, latch. The silence returns. You descend the ladder to the living quarters to collect your belongings. You pack your sleeping roll, buckling the straps tight. Roll, pull. You pick up your lute case. It feels lighter today, or perhaps you are simply stronger. You turn to the keeper. "Thank you for the shelter," you say. He nods, wiping his hands on a rag. "The door is always open to the bard," he replies. Safe travels. You descend the spiral staircase. The journey down is faster, your boots ringing a cheerful rhythm on the iron steps. Clang, clang, clang. You spiral down through the levels of the tower, past the water tanks, the rope store, the oil drums, until you reach the ground floor. You open the heavy red door. Creak, open. The sound of the ocean rushes in to greet you, a roar of welcome. You step out onto the cliff path. The sun is higher now, warming the back of your neck. The grass on the cliff edge is sparkling with melting frost. You walk away from the tower, turning once to look back. It stands, stark and white against the blue sky, a monument to human stubbornness. You salute it silently. You find a narrow, winding path that leads down the face of the cliff towards the beach below. It is a steep, switchback trail carved into the chalk. You begin the descent, your staff taking your weight on the loose stones. Plant, step, slide. The sound of the waves grows louder with every step, shifting from a distant roar to a distinct, crashing percussion. You are leaving the domain of the sky and returning to the domain of the water. You reach the bottom of the cliff path and step onto the beach. It is not a beach of soft sand, but of smooth grey pebbles, millions of them, piled deep by the tides. Walking here is hard work. The stones shift and clatter under your boots with a loud grinding noise. Crunch, clatter, grind. It is the sound of the earth being milled by the sea. You walk towards the water's edge. The tide is turning, beginning its slow creep back up the shore. You watch a wave curl and break, sending a sheet of white foam hissing up the shingle bank. Crash, hiss, retreat. As the water drags back down through the pebbles, it creates a unique sound, a hollow, rattling roar as thousands of stones tumble over one another. Rattle, roar. It is the voice of the shingle beach. You find a large piece of driftwood, bleached bow-white by the sun and smoothed to satin by the sea. You sit on it. Sit, rest. You are at sea level now. The horizon is flat. You pick up a pebble. It is perfectly round, a piece of flint with a hole worn through the center, a hag stone, said to bring good luck. You run your thumb over the smooth surface. Rub, smooth. You look out at the water. A cormorant is diving in the middle distance, disappearing for long minutes before popping up 30 yards away. Dive, wait, surface. You feel a deep, heavy peace settling over you. The journey from the forest to the sea is complete. You have walked the spine of the land. You close your eyes, listening to the rhythmic grinding of the stones and the crash of the waves. The sound washes over you, scrubbing away the last of your thoughts. You are simply a witness to the tide. You breathe in time with the ocean. Inhale, crash, exhale, hiss. You are here. You are still. You are home. You remain sitting on the driftwood log for a while longer, watching the afternoon light lengthen and soften across the water. The sun is beginning to dip behind the headland to the west, casting long, dramatic shadows across the pebble beach. Shadow, stretch. You decide to find a place to rest for the night. Before the light fails completely, you stand up, your boots crunching once more on the shingle, and walk further along the coastline. You are looking for shelter from the evening breeze. You round a rocky point, picking your way carefully over slippery, seaweed-covered stones. Step, slip, balance. Beyond the point you discover a small, secluded cove. It is a perfect crescent of white sand, hidden from the wind by high walls of chalk cliff. At the back of the cove, well above the high tide mark, there is a shallow depression in the cliff face, a dry, sandy hollow that looks like a mouth opening in the white rock. You approach it. The sand here is powdery and soft, protected from the rain by the overhang. Touch. Soft. You step inside the hollow. It is warm, holding the heat of the day. The acoustics are strange. The roar of the ocean is amplified slightly by the curve of the rock, turning into a steady, resonant thrum. Thrum. Echo. You drop your pack onto the sand. Thud. This will be your final camp. You walk back down to the water's edge to scavenge for firewood. The beach is littered with driftwood, branches and planks that have been tumbled by the ocean for months, until they are as smooth as bone and as light as cork. You gather an armful. The wood is bleached grey and smells of dried salt. Gather, pile. You carry it back to your hollow. You arrange the stones to make a hearth. You are building a home for the night on the edge of the great water. The gulls are quieting down now, settling on the cliff ledges, their white forms looking like ghosts against the darkening rock. The world is preparing to sleep. Twilight descends on the cove, turning the white cliffs to a pale, luminous grey, and the sea to a deep, inky purple. You kneel by your fire circle in the shelter of the hollow. You arrange the driftwood carefully, placing the smaller, splintered pieces in the center and the larger logs in a pyramid around them. Stack, balance. You strike a spark. Click, flash. The dry, salty wood catches instantly. Driftwood burns differently than forest wood. Because of the salt impregnated in the grain, the flames dance with strange, mesmerizing colors. Vivid teals, emerald greens, and deep violets mixed with the orange. Flash, color, dance. You watch the magical fire, entranced by the chemistry of the ocean burning before you. It crackles with sharp, pistol shot sounds. Pop, snap. You warm your hands over the colored flames. You eat the last of your supplies, a piece of dried fish and a hard biscuit, dipping the bread into a cup of water to soften it. You eat slowly, watching the tide. It has turned and is coming in, creeping up the beach with infinite patience. You listen to the change in the sound. The waves are getting closer, their crash becoming louder and more percussive. Crash, hiss, Silence. You can see the white line of the foam glowing in the twilight, a moving border between the land and the deep. The air in the hollow is getting cooler, but the radiant heat from the fire keeps you comfortable. You feel a deep sense of completion. You started in the forest, crossed the plains, climbed the mountains, and now you sit at the edge of the sea. The journey is done. There is nowhere left to walk. There is only the sitting, the fire, and the waiting for dreams. The night is now fully established. The sky above the ocean is a vast, unobstructed dome of stars, brighter and sharper than you have ever seen them. The Milky Way seems to dive straight into the black water on the horizon. You reach for your lute one last time. Reach, lift, you take it from its case. The wood feels different here, slightly damp from the sea air, alive and reactive. You tune the strings, the notes ringing out clear and sharp against the sound of the surf. Pluck, ring, true. You do not play a melody tonight. Instead, you play a rhythm. You match your strumming to the tempo of the waves. Crash, strum, hiss, silence. You are playing a duet with the Atlantic. You hit a deep bass note as the wave breaks, and a high, shimmering tremolo as the foam retreats over the pebbles. Boom, shimmer. The music blends perfectly with the environment, becoming part of the soundscape. You close your eyes, feeling the vibration of the instrument against your chest, syncing it with the vibration of the ground caused by the waves. It is a hypnotic, trance-like state. You play for the stars, for the dark water, and for the journey itself. Your fingers move without conscious thought, finding the chords that express the vastness of the scene. Slide, chord, ring. You play until the fire burns down to a bed of glowing, multicolored coals. Then, slowly, you let the music fade. You play quieter and quieter until the sound of the lute is swallowed entirely by the sound of the sea. Fade, whisper, silence. You place your hand over the strings to stop them vibrating. You put the lute away, latching the case for the final time. Click, end. You prepare your bed in the soft, dry sand at the back of the hollow. You use your hands to smooth out the surface, creating a shallow depression to cradle your hips and shoulders. Scoop, smooth, pat. Sand, when shaped correctly, is the most comfortable mattress in the world. You unroll your sheepskin and lay it in the hollow. Unroll, soft. You place your pack at the head to serve as a pillow, covering it with your folded tunic. You lie down. Settle, sink. The sand shifts slightly to accommodate your weight, then holds you firm. You are perfectly supported. You pull your heavy wool cloak over you. It smells of wood smoke, pine needles, and now the sea. It is the scent of your history. You look out of the opening of your small cave. From your low angle, the firelight illuminates the roof of the overhang, casting dancing shadows of orange and green on the white chalk. Beyond the fire, you see the dark line of the ocean and the glittering path of starlight reflecting on the water. Glisten, ripple. The sound of the waves is louder now that you are lying down. A rhythmic, white noise roar that fills your head. Roar, hush, roar. It is a sound that washes away thought. It is impossible to worry about the future when listening to the ocean. The scale of it demands your presence in the now. You watch a piece of driftwood in the fire collapse in a shower of sparks that swirl up and vanish into the night. Collapse, spark, fade. The fire is dying, settling into a gentle, pulsing glow. The heat reaches your face, while the cool sea air touches your hair. It is a perfect balance of elements: fire and water, earth and air. You are the center point. As you lie in the sandy hollow, allow your body to surrender completely to the pull of the earth. Feel the heaviness of your boots, which you have removed and placed by the fire. Feel the relief in your feet, the arches relaxing, the toes uncurling. Relax, release, move your awareness up your legs. The muscles in your calves, which have carried you over miles of mountain and plain, are finally at rest. They feel heavy and warm, sinking into the sheepskin. Sink, heavy. Feel your hips settling into the sand, supported by the ground. Let the tension drain out of your spine, vertebra by vertebra, from your lower back up to your neck. Drain, soften. Imagine the sound of the waves is washing over your body, soothing the tired muscles. With every crash of the wave, feel a wave of relaxation travel down from your head to your toes. Crash, relax. With every hiss of the retreating water, imagine the tension being drawn out of you and pulled into the sea, to be dissolved in the salt. Hiss, your shoulders drop away from your ears, your hands resting on your chest uncurl. Your fingers are loose, the muscles in your face soften, the jaw unclenching, the forehead smoothing out, the eyes resting deep in their sockets. Soften, smooth. You are no longer holding yourself up. The earth is holding you. You are a stone on the beach, heavy and still. You are a piece of driftwood, floating in the calm water. The firelight is fading to a dull red, and the shadows are lengthening, wrapping you in a cocoon of darkness. You are safe in your cave. The tide is keeping watch. The stars are looking down. You are drifting. You are sinking. You are ready to sleep. As the embers of the driftwood fire begin to dim, transitioning from bright orange to a deep, pulsing crimson, the visual world around you begins to soften and recede. The sharp edges of the white cliff face above you blur into the surrounding darkness, losing their definition until they are nothing more than a protective grey presence at the edge of your vision. Blur, fade, soften. The light in the hollow is low and intimate, casting long, slow shadows that stretch across the sand like gentle fingers. You stare into the heart of the dying fire. You can see the ghost of the wood structure in the ash, a skeletal memory of the fuel that warmed you. Glow, pulse, fade. The sound of the ocean, which was once a distinct roar of crashing water and rattling stones, has transformed in your perception. It is no longer a noise that is out there, separate from you. It has become an internal rhythm, a hypnotic, white noise drone that occupies the entire space of your mind. Drone, hum, peace. It washes over your thoughts like the tide washing over the sand, smoothing out the footprints of the day, erasing the worries of the road. You feel a heavy, pleasant numbness spreading through your limbs. It starts in your toes, moving up through your legs, heavy and warm like liquid lead. It fills your hips, your torso, your arms. Your hands feel incredibly large and heavy, resting motionless on the wool of your cloak. You could not move them if you wanted to, and you do not want to. You are anchored to the earth. You are part of the beach. The scent of the salt air is the only thing that remains sharp, a cool, clean draft that fills your lungs with every slow breath, bringing the tranquility of the deep ocean into your blood. Inhale, cool, exhale, warm. The world is shrinking down to this single, safe point in time. There is only the warmth of the embers, the sound of the water, and the heavy velvet blanket of the night. Now, let your mind drift upwards, untethering itself gently from the heavy, sleeping body in the sandy hollow. Imagine your consciousness floating up like a spark from the fire, rising slowly into the cool night air. You drift up past the overhang of the white cliff, up past the nesting gulls with their heads tucked under their wings, rising higher and higher until you are hovering above the coastline. Float, rise, drift. From this vantage point, you can see the world you have traversed. To the west, the ocean is a vast, breathing expanse of darkness, marked only by the rhythmic white lines of the breaking waves. To the east, the land lies sleeping under the starlight. You can see the White Tower Lighthouse standing on its promontory, a silent guardian. Watch the beam of light sweep through the dark. Sweep, flash, sweep. It cuts a cone of clarity through the night, illuminating the restless water for a heartbeat before moving on. Look further inland. You can see the faint outline of the chalk cliffs, glowing pale in the starlight, like the bones of the earth. Beyond them lie the green valleys, now submerged in a sea of mist, the farms and the sheep silent and still. Further still, the golden wood and the forest of echoes are dark masses of shadow, ancient and breathing. And far in the distance, barely visible against the stars, are the jagged silhouettes of the high mountains where you began. You see the entirety of the path. It is a single, unbroken line of experience that has led you here to the edge of the sea. You realize that the journey is complete. There is nothing left to seek. The map is filled. You can let go of the geography now. You can let go of the road. You float there for a moment longer, a silent observer of the sleeping world, suspended in the peaceful void between the stars and the sea, before slowly, gently drifting back down toward the warm glow of the fire. You settle back into your body, feeling the familiar, comforting weight of the gravity that holds you to the sand. The sensation of floating is gone, replaced by a profound sense of grounding. You are the bard, but the song is over. The lute is in its case, silent and sleeping. The boots are empty by the fire. The staff is leaning against the rock. The identity of the traveler is something you can take off, like a heavy cloak, and lay aside for the night. Release, unburden, rest. You are simply a breathing being, existing in the quiet dark. The fire has now burned down to its final stage. The red glow has faded to a dull grey warmth, barely visible. The light has gone, leaving you in the velvet dark. This is not a frightening darkness. It is a soft, thick substance that wraps around you, protecting you from the stimulation of the world. It is the darkness of the womb, the darkness of the seed in the soil. Dark, soft, deep. The sound of the ocean seems to slow down. The interval between the waves stretches out. Crash, hiss, silence. The silence between the waves becomes longer and deeper, a vast space where your mind can rest. You feel the sand beneath you, thousands of tiny grains conforming perfectly to your shape, holding you up. You are supported by the ancient rock of the earth. You feel the wool of the sheepskin against your cheek, soft and lanolin rich. The sensory details are fading one by one. The smell of the smoke is faint. The taste of the salt is a memory. The feeling of the cold air is distant. You are turning inward, spiraling down into the center of yourself, into the quiet, still pool of sleep that waits at the bottom of the mind. You are no longer waiting for sleep. You are inviting it, opening the door and letting the heavy, warm tide wash over the threshold. You are sinking. It is a slow, delicious descent into the deepest layers of rest. You are sinking through the sand, through the chalk bedrock, down into the deep, resonant silence of the earth itself. The surface world, the wind, the waves, the lighthouse, the road, is miles above you now, a distant dream that no longer concerns you. Sink deep, drift. Your breathing has become so shallow and rhythmic that it is almost imperceptible, a tiny flutter of life in the stillness. Your heart beats slowly, a calm, steady drum in the darkness. Thump, thump, thump. Thoughts may drift across your mind, but they are like the clouds you saw on the plains, fluffy, indistinct, and moving away from you. You do not hold on to them. You watch them pass. You are drifting on a river of shadow. It flows gently, carrying you away from the shore of wakefulness, out into the boundless ocean of sleep. The water is warm and dark. It supports you completely. You feel a sense of absolute safety. There is nothing you need to do. There is nowhere you need to be. The past is a closed book. The future is an unwritten page. There is only this eternal moment of rest. You feel a wave of gratitude for the journey, for the strength of your legs, for the beauty of the world, but even that gratitude is fading now, dissolving into the simple primal need for sleep. You are heavy, you are stone, you are water, you are air. You are dissolving. The boundaries of your body are gone. You are part of the night. Drift, dissolve, sleep. The silence is total. The peace is absolute. You are gone. The fire in the seaside cave is now cold ash, the last spark extinguished by the breath of the ocean breeze. The traveler sleeps a sleep as deep as the sea itself, the journey finished, the story told. We return now to the quiet room where we began. The heavy, leather-bound chronicle of the traveling bard is closed. Thud. The pages, filled with the scent of pine forests and salt spray, are pressed together, preserving the memories of the road. We place the book on the shelf alongside the others, a new volume in the Library of Dreams. The ink is dry. The quill is at rest. The night has fully claimed its dominion. We reach out to the single candle that has illuminated our time together. The flame stands tall and still, a final beacon in the dark. We take a breath. Puff. The light is extinguished. A thin ribbon of grey smoke rises, curling into the shadows before vanishing. The darkness is complete. It is a warm, protective darkness filled with the potential of dreams. You are safe here. You are loved. You are part of the great, slow rhythm of history. As you drift away, carry with you the feeling of the sun on the high plains, the smell of the rain in the forest, and the sound of the ocean in the cove. Let these memories be the landscape of your sleep. Rest now. The wheel of the world continues to turn, but your part in it is done for tonight. Sleep deep. Sleep well. Good night.